Hey everyone, and welcome to the Z2.5 channel. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. Now I know what you're saying. How can something that hasn't come out yet be a problem? While the title might be slightly exaggerated, the Chameleon as a villain worries me, because at first glance of the trailer, she seems to be following the same formula that Kai had, and personally I do feel that this formula was what made Kai not as memorable as some of the other villains that we've come to love in the Kung Fu Panda franchise. Now, as we do know, the Kung Fu Panda franchise really does not miss with its villains, and the reason for this, though a lot of people might say I'm wrong, is due to the emotional base of their villains' backstories. I don't think that's the best way to describe it, but I will explain what I mean. It's not the strength or the all-round coolness of their character design, but the effectiveness of the Kung Fu Panda villain always comes down to the screenplay. The Kung Fu Panda franchise tends to not just make compelling villain backstories, but it creates a huge sense of will to their villains, where the villains don't just go on a rampage for the sake of it, but the story gives us a compelling motivation for the villain's actions. Although for me, Kai might be somewhat of an exception. Now basically, what does the Chameleon have in common with Kai? Well, we'll get to understand that. You see, with Tailung, you did not just have a strong villain, but a villain that blends perfectly with Po as the main character, one who creates an opposite divide of a failed student versus the successful student, even though one is physically the opposite of the other. This whole connection creates a very strong villain-hero dynamic, where you have Tailung, though strong and powerful, you could see a world where this character does not exist as a villain, a world where your favorite Snow White leopard does not embody this prideful and power-hungry characterizations. Now, out of everything I just said, the main thing to focus on is the hero-villain dynamic between Tailung and Po. Now, with Shen, who is arguably the greatest villain of the Kung Fu Panda franchise, there is kind of the same replication of tying the villain's intentions to the main character. But with Shen's backstory, the Kung Fu Panda franchise created one of the most compelling villain backstories. And not just that, you also had a very strong hero-villain dynamic to back it up. Yes, similar to Tailung, you could kind of see a scenario where Shen does not go on a rampage if his situation was handled a bit differently with his parents. This creates a sense of sympathy with the character, who we kind of feel empathetic towards. Shen also had a stronger hero-villain dynamic with Po because his backstory intertwined with Po's backstory. This in all drives the two characters throughout the story. Okay, before we go on, please do consider subscribing and liking the video if you're enjoying the video. Thank you for your support, and let's get back into it. Tailung and Shen actively share strong bonds, with their main character being Po. They're not just introduced into the story for the sake of filling the spots of the revenge villain archetype, but hold strong motivations as characters, all in all to hate the main protagonist being Po. And this is where I feel Kai really failed as a villain, and now we might be seeing a similar situation with the Chameleon from the little that we've seen with the trailer. Now, a lot of people might be thinking this probably doesn't exist and maybe this was by chance, but I feel personally this formula isn't by chance with Dreamworks. Dreamworks have created successful movies from this sort of formula with its screenplay. With Puss in Death, you have Death literally waiting patiently throughout Puss's existence so as to pounce. At first, you had Death being involved as a character there to kill Puss, but then the story gives you more reason to really be in tune with these two characters, with the concept that Death has been in every single one of Puss's death, just waiting patiently for Puss' last life. Now, this is not the only movie that we have such a formula being replicated. We have it in Megamind and Titan, where you had Megamind creating his own problem. You also have it with Hiccup and Grimmel, where you have both characters being polar opposites of each other. In all of these movies, you have strong hero-villain dynamics that creates very compelling stories and all in all memorable villains. Now Kai comes in and completely breaks away into his own mode. I'm not saying Kai doesn't do a lot of things right. He is probably one of the coolest character when it comes to his character design. He's probably the most imposing figure throughout Kung Fu Panda's franchise, maybe except Kipa, who is personally for me very imposing, and probably he could arguably have one of the best voice actors in the franchise. So the character does do a lot of things right, but when it comes to his screenplay, he stands on his own as a villain. With his motivation, he isn't motivated at all to kill Po. It's somehow like killing Po is sort of a side quest where he has to take all the cheese of the strongest warriors. Coupled with that, Kai's backstory is not even compelling in any way. Oogway betraying him and all that does not really tie into our fluffy panda. Yes, Kai beats Oogway in his opening scene, and yes, he defeats Shifu and ultimately asserts himself as the strongest on-screen warrior at the time. He still isn't the favorite out of the three because he doesn't have that compelling plot that binds him to Po. So then, when I heard that there were plans to release a Kung Fu Panda 4, to me this was the perfect situation to bring out a villain who is a panda. One who maybe is the last descendants of the pandas that mastered Chi. And maybe this panda has different views than Po when it comes to opening the doors of the pandas to the outside world. This creates the perfect internal conflict. Now another villain that I thought they might bring back is Kepa, who was a brilliant villain in the Nickelodeon show, though in my opinion he might be a bit overpowered, but the character does have an existing faction in the Kung Fu Panda fanbase. Now to my surprise, we got a totally different villain whose name is the Chameleon. Now while I don't know anything about her, on first glance she does seem to be the exact same as Kai on different levels. Firstly, she's capable of tapping into the strengths of former Kung Fu warriors, to which similarly Kai is capable of draining the chi of Kung Fu warriors and using this chi to become stronger. The difference might be that she's capable of transforming and shapeshifting into the whole entire form of these Kung Fu warriors. Secondly, in the first scene that she is in the trailer, she asserts herself as the strongest character. This is also similar to Kai, where you had him come in and defeat Oogway in his opening scene. And finally, thirdly, it does not really look like she ties in with Po as a character. So while the trailer is very inconclusive, I'm just going by what we know, and I could totally be wrong, but the premise of the new movie is that Po goes on a quest to find the new dragon warrior and somehow ends up fighting the chameleon, right? To me, that's not really compelling. Again, I could totally be wrong and this video might be completely negligible, but going off the trailer and what I know from the internet, it seems the chameleon might be written similarly to how Kai was written. Now, coming from a Kung Fu Panda faithful, I don't want this to be the case, and I want to see another Dreamworks box office and critical masterclass. So I'm just going to be very optimistic about this character. Now, what I do love about the Chameleon is that she is not as imposing as any of the other villains that we've had in the past. She's the first female main antagonist in the movies. I feel she has a very unique character design that might play well into her characterization. So these are the things that I do like about her as my first impressions. Okay, so finally I'm back to consistently putting out content. I'm really sorry that I took a 2 weeks hiatus. I haven't been feeling well lately, but I'm back now. I'm strong now, and yeah, wherever you are, hope you all are enjoying the festivities, the weather, and all of that. Finally, if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe to the video. If you haven't liked the video, please do like the video. God loves you and I love you too. Bye bye.